Hey, Mama, before you spend hundreds of dollars on a kindergarten curriculum, hear me, please. Your child can learn everything that they need to know in preschool and kindergarten through play and everyday life. At this age, kids learn best when they're moving and creating and pretending. Don't believe me? Well, I'll show you today exactly what your child is learning when they play. I'm Erin, a former public school teacher turned homeschool mama. And 25 years ago, when I first started teaching, I had huge posters that I created for my kindergarten classroom door. And on those posters, I would write out about when the children were playing this is what they're learning. And I would have all the skills listed that they were learning. So when administrators and parents walked by, they could look in the room and they saw the kids not seated at a desk writing with paper and pencil, not sitting in neat little rows and raising their hands, but they were up, they were moving, they were playing, they were doing puzzles, they were doing blocks, they were pretending to be a chef. And all of those things were completely okay because they were actually learning things. And I wrote those things on that poster to show those people that might pass by that this was purposeful, that this was intentional. And I wasn't just goofing off. I wasn't just letting the kids goof off, but that they were really learning the way that they learned best. And this is what I had learned in college. My professors taught me that small children need to move and explore and discover. They need hands-on activities. They need freedom. They need to engage their entire body in the learning experience and not just sit still and be quiet. And so these are the things that I wanted those parents and administrators to know. When your child is building with blocks or Lego, he or she is learning math skills. So many math skills like geometry, spatial awareness, counting, balance, symmetry, patterning, all of these, even measurement. They're learning a ton of basic math skills and they're learning them in a real life, authentic context. They're also learning to follow directions, whether they're playing with other children and they're having to work things out, or whether they're following the booklet from Lego and it's this thing, now this piece over here. And you have to follow the directions in order for it to turn out correctly. They're learning problem solving and critical thinking in a hands-on, authentic way because this didn't work and our structure fell down. And so now we're gonna have to try this block, or maybe we're gonna have to try it this way, or maybe we're gonna have to make it too wide instead of just one because it didn't have a big enough base. Whatever it is, and they're learning those things. And you can guide them through that. And they're discovering, they're practicing their fine motor skills, and they're learning perseverance as well. When they try something and it doesn't work, and they have to continue again. And they're wanting to persevere because they want to create the thing that they're wanting to play. It's not like when you have them seated at a desk and you're teaching them math and they have to keep going because you got to finish the worksheet. But they want to persevere. They want to continue because they want to play the game. They want to create the thing that they've started. One time I had a student in my class who was excellent in the block center. This was his forte. He wasn't so good at reading and writing and math, but the skill that he had best was spatial awareness. And in the block center, he created a car with these huge wooden blocks. And he created the frame of the car. It went up. It had a large flat block over the top as the roof. He had a gear shift. He had a wedge block for the pedals. He had headlights, a license plate, blocks to represent the handles on the door, everything you could imagine. This kid was so creative and so imaginative, and we were able to use that spatial awareness later, and we taught him to make letter shapes with the blocks because that was what he learned. That was the way he learned best. And before we sat down and did paper and pencil things with him, we let him do the blocks, and it really helped him to start that learning process. When your child is engaged in pretend play, like playing with dolls or Barbies or Bluey figures or action figures, or they're pretending to be a doctor, a scientist, a cashier, they are learning so many things. And I love to watch my children who are, right now my little ones are 9 and 5, and they engage in pretend play. And I watch them and I see all the things that they are learning, especially my 5-year-old, because she's getting ready to start kindergarten now. And we're doing all of these readiness things while she's playing. And it's fascinating. She's learning to read and write in her playtime, because when they play restaurant, they write a menu or they take someone's order. And so she'll come to me and she'll say, how do you spell pizza? And I'll say P. And she may be able to make a P, or she may just make a little squiggle. And then she runs off and that's the whole word. But at least she understood, hey, you need to know how to spell things. Letters are important. Writing is important. You put the pen on the paper, you make the marks, and then you go back and you read it to the chef and you say, hey, chef, that she wants pizza. And so those kinds of things, they play doctor or vet and they're writing notes on the patient's chart, or they make a logo for the pizza store. or they make an advertisement for their beauty salon and they write the prices down and things like that. So there's lots of creating and inventing. One time they were actually had a neighborhood lemonade stand, and they made signs with their friends for that lemonade stand. And so again, they're practicing reading and writing. They're learning social and emotional skills too. They're learning empathy, and they're learning to consider different people's perspectives. My children pretend to be me. Sometimes they're playing the mom role, and whether that's a Barbie or a Bluey, or they're the mom holding the baby doll, I hear things that I have said to them in other contexts coming out of their mouth to their children. And so they're starting to see things from my perspective by playing the role of mom. They also, when they're playing with these little characters, they're able to see the dad's role or the doctor's role or the scientist's role. They're pretending to be an astronaut, and they're imagining what it's like to blast off, to go into outer space. And those things, all of those things will help them as they are reading to understand the story and understand things that are not said, because they understand emotions, they understand tension, they understand anxiety or stress or fear or happiness that the different characters are feeling because of their pretend play. This also prepares them for creative writing. When they're going to create a story about something, they're not going to have a flat story, but they're going to understand different perspectives because of doing this over and over in their pretend play. They are masters of problem solving because they have to figure things out. We don't have a giant cardboard box to be our rocket ship, so what are we going to do? Well, I guess we can clean out the shoes out of the floor of the closet, pretend like the closet is the rocket ship, and we'll blast off, or we'll build a fort, and we'll pretend that this is our tent, and we're outside camping, or whatever that is. They pretend and they problem solve. One day, one of them had used toilet paper to wrap up the cat or the baby doll's arm, and they were playing vet, and there's like, we don't have any bandages, so they'd used toilet paper and tape and wrapped up this kitten, and and they do these things. They use the drill from the plastic toolkit as their hairdryer for the beauty salon one day. And it's great because I'm seeing them problem solve. They don't need every single toy in the world. They just need an imagination and the opportunity to think and to problem solve. And pretend play gives them that opportunity. They're learning new vocabulary all the time. I'm sure you've noticed this with your children as well. They'll like the cooker flipper, and I'm like, this is a spatula, This is a curling iron. This is a hair dryer. This is the cashier. This is the doctor. Oh, this is the receptionist. You're going to take my order? Then you're the server or the waitress. A stethoscope. Like, I want to listen to your heartbeat. Let me get my thing. What thing? Oh, this thing. What do you call this thing? It's a stethoscope. So all of these things are teaching them vocabulary, which is super important when they learn to read. They're going to sit down with a book, and all of a sudden they're going to be able to understand those words because they're words that already exist in their vocabulary. They're learning storytelling. They're learning sequencing. First, Barbie's going to take a shower, then she's going to get dressed, then she's going to go in the car with Ken to the restaurant for dinner. Or I'm going to roll out the pizza dough, then I'm going to spread on the sauce, sprinkle on the cheese, add the toppings before we put it in the oven. And so they understand sequencing, and they learn that as they're doing pretend play. They also learn math skills when they're counting or adding or telling time or recognizing money as they're playing store or restaurant or whatever. And they learn cooperation when they're playing alone with us. It's just the child and the parent, or when they're working together with their siblings or their friends. They are learning to cooperate with the parent or with the other child of how to play this game and how to get along. So all of those things are super important skills that come from pretend play. When your child is outside running, jumping, climbing, riding the tricycle, swimming in the pool, he or she is learning gross motor skills. And this is so important in laying the foundation for the fine motor skills that are needed for writing, for turning the pages, for doing other things. They're going to need cutting with scissors. They're going to need the gross motor skills in order to lay the good foundation for the fine motor skills. A child I had in kindergarten years ago came to us, and his mom later confessed that all he did was sit around and play video games, that he didn't go outside and play, and he hadn't had a lot of experiences running, jumping, and that sort of thing. He could not hold a pencil, he could not tear paper, he could not cut with scissors, and we tried to help him in all the ways that I knew how. We ended up calling in the physical therapist and occupational therapist there at the school, and the advice of them was to take him outside on the playground and let him have more outside playtime So riding the tricycle and alternating his feet, going up and down the stairs, alternating his feet, climbing up the ladder to slide down the slide, running with the other children, learning to run and kick the ball at the same time, kicking the ball, bouncing the ball. All of these things were important coordinational things that he needed in order to be able to do the fine motor things. And so we learned there how important it was and the connection between the gross motor and the fine motor. They're also learning through all of this gross motor play about risk assessment. Can I do this, or am I going to get hurt? Will this work, or am I going to fall off? And so they're learning that, which is a lot better to learn it now than later on in life. And we want them to understand risk assessment. We want them to think and reason and go, probably shouldn't do that. Or, ooh, that didn't work. I'm not going to do that again. And we want them to learn these things. And they're building confidence. This is a huge one, too. Because when my child could swim a lap across the pool, and she went from, one of my older girls, she went from being scared of the water and not getting off the steps to being able to put her face in the water and blow bubbles, and by the end of the summer was able to swim across long ways across the pool, back and forth. The confidence that that child gained from that, the confidence that my daughter gained from going from white belt to black belt in karate, the confidence that my little one gained from going down the hill on her bicycle, learning how to ride the balance bike, and then moving up to an actual bicycle and pedaling and going down the hill and then up another hill. All of these things, when they are learning these things and they're gaining confidence, that translates to other areas of their lives. So when they're successful with something, then they're like, oh, I can do this. And when they improve skills, that translates to, oh, now I'm going to take a risk and spell a hard word. Now I'm going to take a risk and make a guess on this word that I'm reading. It might be right, it might be wrong, but I'm a little bit more confident because I've been confident in other areas, and I'm willing to take that risk and try something. I'm going to try this math problem. This might not be the right answer, but I'm willing to take a risk. And that comes from building their confidence and building up their independence through things like outdoor playtime. It also builds up their strength and their endurance. It counts as PE. And there's math skills that also take place in all of these outdoor playthings. They sometimes count how long they can hold their breath underwater, or how far they can jump, or they want to measure whose ball went the furthest when they're throwing stuff, or their rock. And am I further than you? Can I shoot the Nerf gun longer than you can? Can I jump longer than you can? Can I run further than you can? And so they're learning math vocabulary. They're counting the number of times they can jump rope. They're measuring things. All of this is part of math, and it's integrated very naturally, and they choose to do it all on their own while they're playing outside and running around. When your child is drawing or coloring or painting, he or she is learning to improve their fine motor skills. Once again, they're learning visual expression and creativity. They're designing, they're imagining, they're planning something out in their head, and then they're executing that plan on paper, which is super important. We need kids to learn how to plan things. I'm going to create the ocean scene, so I've got to have room for the sand here, and I can't make the ocean too big up here. They have to plan that, and then they execute that plan. They improve their focus because they're going to have to keep going until they're done. They're going to improve that perseverance, and they're going to be able to focus in on a project and see it through because of practicing just in drawing and coloring. They're going to learn color recognition. They're going to learn how to mix colors and create new colors. They're going to learn emotional expression. And this is really, really good and important. And some kids actually, this is therapeutic when they're angry and they can color really hard with a dark colored marker, or when they're happy and they can draw something bright and beautiful. And those things are very important for them to be able to express their emotions and to work through things. And many times kids make up stories to go along with their artwork. I remember very specifically a little boy that I taught in kindergarten drawing an awesome looking shark. And I said, wow, that's so great. And he said, yeah, here's the fisherman, and he caught the shark. And I'm like, super. And I come back later and he had scribbled all over the shark. And I went, what happened? Your picture was great and you messed it up. And he said, oh, well, the shark bit the fisherman's foot off. So the fisherman shot the shark. And so he scribbled the shark out because he's gone now. And instead of drawing multiple pictures in the story, he was imagining this whole story and drawing it on top of each other. It was all kind of taking place on this one page, which is developmentally appropriate for a 5-year-old. But he had a lot of creativity that was going to translate later on in life to creative writing and storytelling. And so it was so great to see those skills taking place right there in the Art Center. When your child is playing with Play-Doh or clay, he or she is also improving fine motor skills. This is so important because we want to just hand a kid a pencil and expect them to know how to write, but that's not the best thing. The best thing is to give them other tools so they can practice, like fat pieces of chalk and markers or clay and Play-Doh. And so they're learning tactile sensory input, hand strength and dexterity. They're also working on critical thinking and creative thinking, sustained focus, which we've talked about before. They're also doing shapes and form recognition. You can teach them this is a ball, but it's also called a sphere. Oh, can you make a cone? Let's make a cube. So they're learning those 3D shapes as well. And it's super important kindergarten skills. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, yes, this is what I want for my child, but I'm not sure how to start my own homeschool, I have something that can help you. My Kickstart Your Homeschool course is a free video resource that you can do at your own pace, and it walks you through the first steps and stages of homeschooling. All of the decisions, all of the legalities and practicalities I spell out and help you right there. It's free, and the link is in the description below. And if you want more personalized help to get started, or you've already started and you've kind of hit a snag, check out my Coach in Your Pocket program. It's literally having a veteran homeschool mom just one text away from you anytime you need me, and you don't have to figure it all out alone. I'm here, and I would love to help you walk through this homeschool journey. So the link for that is in the description below, and more information about that is available as well. When your child is singing and doing rhymes with motions, things like the Miss Mary Mac rhyme or the Macarena song, or any kind of little silly fun song or chant, something you hear on the radio, something you watch on a YouTube video, they are learning language skills and vocabulary. Years and years and years, I've heard kids, they're listening to something and they hear a word and they're like, what does that mean? And it's through this song that they learn new vocabulary, and they're learning new words, and they're asking questions. They're also learning language rhythm. They're learning phonemic awareness. It's an early literacy skill. They're learning to listen to sounds and to repeat those same sounds. They're learning about rhyming. Rhyming is going to help them with reading in so many different ways. It's also going to help them with spelling. I teach my children, if you can spell cat, then you can spell fat, and you can spell mat, and you can spell that. So learning to rhyme is super important to learning to read and write. It also strengthens their memory, learning these songs and these rhymes, and it teaches them coordination as they're moving to those movements. When your child is playing with sand or water or dirt, like my kids love to do, he or she is learning science and math concepts, things like volume, measuring, comparing size and volume, cause and effect, sink and float. They're doing sensory integration. They're learning more. They're doing those fine motor skills, and they're practicing there. They're stirring, they're scooping, they're pouring. They're learning problem solving as they build a sandcastle or they build a moat or a dam. They're learning imaginative storytelling, which is a creative writing skill. And they're pretending, they're playing. In my water center, in my kindergarten classroom, I would have ice, or I would freeze different objects in an ice tray and give them to the kids, and they would have to explore how to melt the ice, what would melt the ice faster, what could they do, was rubbing it good, was pouring warm water on it, or pouring cold water on it, or just sitting it in the open air. And they learned all kinds of things about the different forms of ice, the solid and the liquid. And that was great for all sorts of math and science things that they learn just playing with sand and water or dirt. Lastly, when your child is playing board games or card games, he or she is learning all sorts of things from social studies, math, and reading and writing skills. So when my children are playing Candyland, Monopoly Junior, Checkers, Uno, those are some of our favorites, headbands, they're learning social studies skills, the social skills of taking turns, following the directions, the rules of the game, cooperating with one another. Even if they're just playing with mom or dad, they still have to follow the rules. They still have to do things right. They have to learn how to win and lose gracefully. Now, sometimes we can let the little ones win, but sometimes they have to experience losing. That's just part of life. And they have to learn how to lose and not get mad and throw all the pieces and run out of the room crying. You know, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, and it's okay. So that's a great place to learn that. It's a life skill, and it's so important. It teaches them strategy, especially with checkers. And then our checkerboard has something on the other side. It's called fox and geese. And I'm just learning that myself. And my little one has mastered the role of the fox, and she can beat me every time. She hasn't learned how to be the geese yet, and I haven't either for that matter. But there's a lot of strategy to this game of how to jump over things or how to box the fox in. And you use checkers to play this game. It's similar to checkers, but they're thinking. And when we play this, I'm thinking. We're learning the strategies of the games. Math skills are all over the place in board games and card games because you do number and color and pattern recognition. In Candyland, you are literally going, it's orange. I need to find the orange. I need to move one orange. It's yellow, or there's 2 yellow. I need to jump 2 yellows. So that is very important for preschool. Monopoly Junior, you're counting the money. You're having to add it up. I don't have a $3 bill, so I have a 1 and a 2, and that equals 3. Uno has all of the numbers on it and they have to match. That's a 6, I have a 6, match it up. Or this is green and that is green, and they match it up. So there are lots of patterns, color recognition, counting, and adding that is involved in playing games. It's also there are also reading and pre-reading skills involved in this. We have a set of headbands that has just the pictures, and we have another set that has the words. And either way, the child is having to look at something and understand its meaning. And when we play charades, it's the same thing. We have cards that have pictures on them, and they look at that, and then they have to pretend to be whatever that is. It's a teapot, so I'm going to pretend I'm going to act out the tea party. So it's understanding meaning from pictures and words, and that's a part of reading as well. Because when you look at a book, especially children's books, there's a lot of hidden meaning in the picture that's not necessarily in the words. And so the kids need to learn how to study pictures and understand what it means and take away meaning from the picture. So playing games that involve pictures is great as well. When your child is doing puzzles, he or she is learning visual discrimination. Super important for reading and math skills later on. They need to know the difference between different letters and different numbers, and they're going to do that while they're looking at puzzles. They're going to look at the different pieces. How do those pieces fit together? It's going to develop their logical thinking, which is part of those math skills. It's going to teach them persistence and patience, just like the blocks. And the art projects, they're going to have to continue until they get finished. They're going to have those fine motor skills and practice moving those little pieces around with their fingers. They're going to practice shape and spatial awareness. How do these things fit together? What do they look like? How does it fit? What is this? And then they also learn lots of concepts through puzzles. So if it is an alphabet puzzle, they're learning letters. If it's a number puzzle, they're learning numbers. They can also learn geography and animals and all sorts of other things, looking at that puzzle and putting that together. It doesn't have to be educational. It could be something fun. You know, it can be a bluey puzzle, and they're still learning about colors and shapes and how those things fit together. It's math skills, and so it's super important for kids to do puzzles. Thanks for watching my video. I pray that this encourages you and gives you the confidence to step out of the box of pencil and paper and textbook and into the world of play, hands-on learning, exploration, following your kids' interests, following your heart. And I pray that your homeschool is blessed. If you want more content like this, don't forget to like and subscribe. Happy homeschooling!